Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petralis, and I am super excited for today's guest. First of all, from Medford, where I grew up, born and raised. So obviously, anytime you get someone on from Medford, it's always a little extra fun. Also a tremendous three-sport athlete at Medford High School, only a sophomore. As a freshman last year, did some damage as well, and is one of our Beyond All-Stars. We have about 10 Beyond All-Stars. Actually, I think we have 12 Beyond All-Stars. But they're scattered throughout the state, high school and college, and it's fun and being able to follow him and cover a lot of his teams. It's been able to see him grow as an athlete has been cool, but really, chatting on, social media, promoting his, highlights and getting things on there about him, anything special awards that he gets, we're posting on there as well. So it's really good kid too. And we're super excited to have him on. So from Medford High School, three-sport athlete, super sophomore, Justin Marino.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So I hope that intro was great, dude. I felt like I was like, man, this kid might not be able to walk into school tomorrow with his head's gonna be so big, right? But no, in all seriousness, thanks for taking the time. I know you're in between sports right now, but obviously baseball and cages, and I'm sure you're with your team doing all sorts of stuff, even though the season hasn't officially begun, it's going. So I just want to talk a little bit about who you are today and have some fun with this, man. So let's enjoy this. So I'll start off with a really funny question. Like, you're a sophomore, you played last year as a freshman at all three sports. Who is like the scariest dude on a team that you played with that, like, if they yelled and screamed or said something, you were shutting your mouth and not saying a word? And if there's a few, you can give a few, but who is it? I'm just curious.
Scariest dude. There's definitely a couple. I'm probably gonna say that they mostly came from football because that environment's just it's something
Different.
else. But
Yeah.
I'd say most of the captains, like Jared Alsop, my captain last year, he was definitely a scary dude when it came to it. He could be funny too. He's just one of those. Isaiah Blake was a scary dude too. Those two are pretty. They were always big. They were running through you at practice, and it was just they had a funny side and they had a scary side. And when they were on their scary side, it was back off.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's funny. Like I had a guest on here, I Thomas Driscoll on here earlier last week, and we were talking about, I kind of asked him a similar question. And it was funny because I coached him a little bit. So I do know some of the kids that he might be referring to or talking to, but he went back to like youth. He went back to like somebody on his youth team that was like terrifying to him. And so I found that funny because I would go right to high school football too. I said this last week, but they had this kid, Ryan McInerney, who terrified me on and off the field, but was the nicest human being in the world. But just like you said, not someone you want to be standing there as a sophomore getting ran into, from a senior. So I totally get what you mean when you said that. So what's interesting about you and what I find amazing is I'm seeing this more in high school sports, and you're seeing it in college sports too, when you have that like freshman come in and just be able to play and jump and play at the pace and play at the speed and play with the big boys. Because again, these kids are older than you. Their bodies are more developed. They've been working out in the weight room in a few off seasons, maybe more than you had even touched the weights at that point. So as a freshman coming in, did you have the mentality, and you could talk about all sports or a specific sport, I don't care which one you talk about, but did you have a mentality going in that you thought I could contribute and start in any sport that I play? Or was it just you were kind of surprised that you were maybe just caught the coach's eye and playing really well?
Well, baseball and basketball were two I believe I could because basketball I played with those guys growing up. I'd be at the open gyms. Coach Scary and I had a good relationship when I was young and all that. And baseball too. I played baseball my whole life and I played with those guys. I played on many baseball teams. Football was kind of surprising though because that was my first year. Freshman year was my first year playing football.
Like
I
ever
never
playing football in your
ever,
life?
ever
Okay.
playing tackle football. Yeah, obviously in the back schoolyard and stuff like that.
Right,
And
right.
I had pretty good hands. My dad was always hands on with me, but no, playing football at the gate was something surprising. But I just went to practice every day, worked hard, and I saw that it was working. Coaches would talk to me and all that, and finally found my spot on the starting offense.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see. I remember I came to a game early on and you made a few plays, and I was just like, it was like one of the first games I think Beyond honestly ever recorded. It might have been like the second or third game. And I remember a few times, and I kind of like when I was near your bench, I asked the kid, I was like, what year is number 10? And they're like a freshman. I go, what? Like that was, I thought maybe sophomore, like at the lowest. I just never thought freshman, but yeah, you looked like you belonged right away. And for you, That must be like interesting introduction into high school because obviously high school's nerve-wracking, but here you are as a freshman playing on the football team. I'm sure kind of the older kids taking a real liking to you. So was it an easy transition into high school as a result of that? I mean, did that kind of one go with the
I mean,
other?
yeah, definitely helped a little bit. I was nervous going in a little bit, but playing sports is always, you make friends, teammates are always have good relationships. So going into freshman year, playing football and having like, seniors that I could look up to, seniors that would help me out, like, dabbing them up in the hallways, it always just made me happy. Whatever, it definitely made it easier going in.
Yeah, and that's great to see. And again, I was really impressed like watching you. And then when I heard you played basketball, and I think you might have like with maybe the sixth man or like seventh man that freshman year, maybe some games you even started. I didn't watch every one of your games, but I did see, and I think it was you. Did you hit some like crazy buzzer beater against Chelsea or something like that? Was that you?
Yeah, I did. Chelsea, we had a few injuries and a few people sick from COVID, so I got the start, and after that, I got a couple more starts after that too. I started the last 5, 7 games after that, and no, but Chelsea, it was a tough game. We were up a little bit in the first half. Kind of lost a huge crowd there. It was their senior night. They had all the momentum going. It was, I think it was, yeah, I think it was, yeah, it was like 5 seconds left. We had like three kids who don't really play much because we're coming out the rotation. We had some two starters fouled out, and I don't know. The ball came to me. I shot it, just went in.
Yeah,
Just
and
went
you
in.
were kind of like, I mean, you weren't like at half court, but you weren't at the three. I mean, you were somewhere probably in between like half court and the 3-point line, if I remember right. I haven't seen it in a
Yeah,
while, but
around there. Yeah,
so what was that feeling when you hit it? Like what
it
went through
was.
your
I mean,
mind?
I didn't, as a freshman, I didn't think I was going to be able to take the last shot, but it got swung to me on the wing, and I put it up, and it went in. And I was just, I put my hands up, and the whole team come crowd me, and then the crowd was quiet. It was a great feeling. It was awesome.
You know, it was funny. There was just a thing on Max Preps today that pops up. I like follow a lot of Max Prep stuff
Yeah.
because it gives me such great ideas or things to like pay attention to at games. And they had this thing pop up, and I forget what state it was, but it was a high school playoff game. Last possession, they were kind of holding the ball. Their senior point guard had the ball in his hand, and they just like zoom in on this freshman who's like on the wing, but he's like behind the 3-point line. He's just like calling the kid's name. He's like, "Trust me, I'll hit it. I'll hit it. I'll hit it." And like, I was like, at first you didn't know it was a freshman because they didn't say that. And then all of a sudden they like kid, starts driving, he kicks it out, and the kid's right in position, and then it freezes and it says freshman. And then like then it lets it play on. He nails the
Yeah.
three. And they're playing in like a big arena because it's huge.
Right. Yeah.
And the crowd goes nuts and they just show this kid like I'm the man, and that's what I said to you. Like there's such a level of like young kids being able to come play at the high school level. I mean, I coached football for a long time and I had 3 or 4 kids as freshmen that walked in that we were just like, okay, like this kid's getting reps and yeah, he can play. So it's amazing that you're seeing that more at the high school level. And obviously you're not only doing that, it's not like you're just a special teams player or, an eighth or ninth guy off the bench as a freshman. You were also the start and shortstop for baseball, which is arguably outside of center field, the most athletic position, or I argue that it is the most athletic position. You in center field, it could be debatable, right? So it's impressive at the rate that you are really participating, and you should be really proud of yourself, and realize
Thank
that you got something really good going here. And I know you're super disciplined and listen to you should, if you haven't listened to it, listen to the one with Thomas Driscoll, because when I talked to him about like off season and going into the next season, his take was very interesting. And I think as someone, a little bit younger than him, just to kind of hear that, obviously he's dominant captain in 3 sports, but he takes the mentality of playing sports and taking time off. And so it was just interesting. So I love for you to kind of listen to it and hear it. As you just kind of growing as an athlete as well. So obviously 3 coaches you have, right? And I've covered all 3 of your teams. I covered Somerville last year when you guys play them at Tufts. So technically I kind of covered you guys too, but which coach? I mean, I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm just curious. Like, I'm going to ask you a few different questions about coaches and you can tell me which one. Which coach is like your nuttiest coach?
Oh, it's definitely football.
I mean,
It's
right. Okay.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
just it's just a different atmosphere. It's obviously, the baseball is more of a mental game. Basketball is more, mental, has an athletic aspect, but football is just an all-out war. he is a war guy, and he's going to go to battle, and that's just his mentality.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell, like, I feel like sometimes just when even talking football with him, you can just see like he's ready to
Right.
blow, you know? Like, I mean, it is really cool. So
Yeah.
I kind of knew the answer to that, but I just had to make sure. Which coach is the most technically sound coach? Like someone who just pays attention to detail on everything.
Um, Probably Coach Oz. My baseball coach. That's the more of a technical sport. So he's always, we do a lot of like bunt coverages and like situational stuff, and get you ready for a big moment. So he'll take the cake on that one.
Cool. And then which coach would you say is just like nice, relaxed, cool coach that you just like playing for because it's a good vibe?
Coach Scary. I mean, I've known him since I was little, and we've always had a great relationship. And coming to the high school, he's treated me well, and he's given me the opportunity to play, and I appreciate it. No, he's definitely a funny guy. He makes practices fun and all that.
Yeah, I mean, we covered your guys' practice, and what I found so interesting was like during practice, like the conditioning that he kind of built into practice. I mean, you guys are all of a sudden doing like shooting drills or passing drills or rotating drills, and then all of a sudden you have vest on, you have bungees, you're
Right.
running. Like, I mean, that must be a different type practice because football can be like that early on in training camp, but then that kind of stops. In baseball, I mean, I'm guessing the same thing, like spring training, loosening up, whatever, but then eventually you jump into it. I mean, is that different type of style of practice than would you say
I
your other
mean,
sports?
kind of. I mean, every day we do a station drill. So we have like 8 hoops in our gym. So we'll go around, like 4 of them will be shooting, 4 of them will be conditioning, and it builds everything. We use medicine balls, jump ropes, and bungee cords going up and down the floor, like pulling each other around, 2 ball dribbling. It helps implement different aspects into your game. I mean, the medicine ball, like it's pushing it up and throwing it to each other. It's definitely a different type of practice, but it's definitely useful and helpful.
Yeah, I mean, something's working. I mean, I've covered you guys the last couple of years. You made the playoffs both years. Obviously, a heartbreaking, tough loss that you guys had by a point in round one, and battled back from what I was just kind of following on Twitter. You guys were down big. Talk about this season a little bit because we covered you guys against Somerville, and you guys were very impressive. And we've covered a few different I almost said CCL. That's I don't think Catholic. I just did. We covered so many GBL games this year that I kind of got to see all the teams play and to see how impressive and consistent you guys were in a tough league. I mean, English is like no joke, and classical traditionally is pretty tough. So Revere obviously is tough. I mean, Chelsea hit the buzzer beating. So it's a pretty tough league, but you guys, I think you finished overall 14-6. That includes your loss in the playoffs, so really 14-5 regular season. I mean, talk about the squad this year a little bit. You guys seem like you had a lot of things going.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough at the start. We started off 0-4. We were battling sicknesses and injuries and stuff. And when we got the team fully healthy, we kind of had to sit down in the locker room. It was time to change stuff. And we had different practice plan. We started going harder, longer, and then we won our first game, our second game. We got in a little streak. Then we lost to English, and then we got into another streak, and then we battled all year because there was no stopping. We got on a little roll, and we were going pretty good.
Yeah, so if you started 0-4, that means you guys then went 14-1. I mean, the rest of the season, right? I mean, you didn't lose a game then after, like you lost one game after that.
Two, I think we played 20 game season, so we went 14-6
Oh
overall.
yeah, okay. So counting the playoff game.
Yeah,
Okay, counting the
right.
playoff game. So yeah, so that's amazing. 14-2
Yeah.
after starting off 0-4. And I remember I saw your assistant coach at a surprise party and we were talking about the team a little bit. I was like, "How you guys doing?" He's like, "Well, I mean, we haven't started off right, but we're really not healthy. We played a really tough beginning of the year schedule." He's like, "As soon as we get healthy, he's like, I think we're going to be a really tough team." And he was not wrong. I mean, we just kind of went over the numbers there and obviously talked about, that season and everything that happened. So, he was pretty spot on with his assessment of how he felt about you guys as a team. Before we jump into baseball, which is coming up, I just want to jump backwards into football a little bit. Obviously, I'm a football guy. And one thing that I don't know if you remember this or not, but I might have like talked to you in the summer and or maybe right at the beginning of the season. And I asked you, I said, can you throw the football? And you were like, "Yeah, I can throw the football." And I was like, "Huh." And I remember just being like, I'd be interested to see if they give him reps at quarterback because why not? You played receiver last year, you played both sides of the ball. You could tell at times they wanted to get the ball in your hands. I think I saw a couple films when you were a freshman or maybe running reverses or quick little things that they were trying to get the ball to you. So, I just found it interesting. And I never said a word to like any of your coaches or anything. And then one of the kids I had seen said, I think your quarterback might have got hurt or something might have happened. And you jumped in and played quarterback. And I remember being like, I think it might have been Murph. I was like, how is he? Is he pretty good? He's like, yeah, he's not that bad. He can run with the ball and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of assumed that. So talk about that, because obviously coming into a season, you weren't expecting to be the quarterback, nor were you training to be the quarterback. And I've worked with plenty of high school quarterbacks that they're working the season, whether it's 7-on-7s or seeing a camp or getting their plays down there and running routes with their teammates. Like, you didn't really kind of have that. So talk about that, because I think that's pretty impressive, period, that you're the guy they go to as a sophomore.
Yeah, we ran a little different offense this year, so I was jumping around for multiple positions. I was playing like 3 to 4 positions, so I had to learn a couple of different plays and all that, and different ways and stuff like that. But when our quarterback went down a second scrimmage, they said it's your time, and I went in there and I just we eased into it a little bit, and then he wasn't able to play the third scrimmage. That's when I started. And we did our whole offense. It wasn't like fit to my game, just being like thrown in there. It was so I quarterbacked a little bit in practice, but I was mainly focused at receiver, and then I started our first game. Our first game was rough. I didn't go out very well. But second game he came back and they pushed me back to receiver, and that was that. And I haven't really got much quarterback reps since, but he threw in the RPO package like here and there, and we'd run it some games and some games we wouldn't. But no, they definitely look to get me the ball sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean that says a lot, because I think as you progress in condition and work out and get bigger, and obviously the game starts slowing down for you a little bit more. Yeah, you be an interesting person to put back there, like Wildcat RPO, but obviously you can throw the football, so it's not like a team can load the box or say, oh, when 10's in the game, we're putting 8 guys in the box. Like, they can't really do that. So, work at it. Like, just just, even though that's not your position, I would just work at it, because they're definitely gonna. I mean, your coach is pretty smart. They'll have something planned for you. So that's great. But jumping into baseball, because obviously that's the season that's coming up. I sat down with your coach a couple weeks ago. He reached out to me, or I forget how we connected, but we're covering a decent amount of your guys' games this year. So I'm super excited about that. But talk about the season, what it looks like, how the squad looks, and what you see.
I think we'll be pretty good this year. We came off a rough season last year, but everyone we're getting a lot of guys in early. A lot of guys came in over the winter. A lot of guys came in now after basketball ended, after hockey ended. So we're getting a good team together in the cages and stuff, and the conditioning workouts, and the early Saturday mornings, and we should be all right this year.
Cool. And so obviously you're playing shortstop. I forget, did you bat third? Am I right?
I think it was like fifth, sixth some games, but
Okay, okay,
yeah,
okay.
middle of that.
But yeah, I mean, even fifth is like, that's the guy behind the cleanup hitter. I mean, that's arguably your second, maybe third best power guy in the team as a freshman. So that's pretty good. Now, do you play shortstop? Do you play any other positions besides that? Do you pitch at all, or?
Um, I didn't pitch much last year. I pitched in a scrimmage game, but I can pitch a little bit. I'm sure I'll pitch a little bit more this year. But we had a good pitching squad a little, so I didn't get much burn there. But I did play shortstop, so that was really the only position I played.
Yeah. Um, and then this is maybe just a general question for sports, and I just find this interesting because obviously you're younger. You've now been involved with 5 varsity sports, so we're counting each season that you've been involved with, and obviously you have your freshman year a set of captains in all sports. This year you have a whole new set of captains, or maybe like there might be a repeat captain or something like that, but for the most part, whole new captains. What have you learned about leadership? Like, what have you learned about being an example on the team, especially as a young sophomore, who I'm sure a lot of sophomores look up to you and say, look at Justin, look what he's doing. That's our boy. Like, we want to be like him. Like, talk about that a little bit.
I would just say lead by example. Like go out there every day, work hard. Don't just every day work hard because some of these kids they it's cold day. Like oh maybe you don't want to take as many reps. Maybe you're on the sideline for scout team, but work hard and you're gonna find your spot. And I just think that all my captains so far have shown me that hard work is up there.
That's great. And I think it's so important because you are playing different sports. And, there's always that argument of oh, well, I'm the best at this sport. I might have to start focusing on that. And I just, to me, there's a lot you lose doing that. Maybe, yeah, you skill wise get better at that game, at your game, and maybe you develop it into something and get you somewhere. But as a person who plays a lot of different sports are different. Like you said at the top, like when you talked about your coach, like, like football's just a different animal. Even when we talked about the scariest kids, football's a different animal. Like each sport brings something different to the table. And like your captain in football probably doesn't act like your captain in baseball, like as far as, well, and it's a different type of leadership. So you learn a lot playing different sports from a leadership perspective, situational perspective, putting your mind always in tough situations and you having to make split that second decisions and everything else. You do learn a lot, and there is a lot of value of playing multiple sports, not only develop physically and get tougher, but like just mentally a part of it too. Um, you're a Medford guy. Do you ever hear of Four Pizza in Medford Square?
I have. I heard it's very popular now.
Yeah, so we do a little bit of work with them, and you're a Medford guy. You got to get these high school kids down here. I know they really want to work with sports teams and do all that different stuff, but I'll eat any type of pizza. But like when I went in there and had their pizza, I was like, this is a different pizza. Like I've never had pizza like that. The combinations, I go in there sometimes just to videotape them making a pizza because I think their process is like it's smooth. It's like a boom, 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 all these
Yeah.
ingredients on it, pump it out. It's really cool. So I know it's pretty popular. It was on Barstool too. Portnoy went by and did a pizza review there. Yeah. So you guys got to check it out. Like you guys had a
Cool.
half a day today, man. Next time go
Yeah.
down there and get some pizza. Tell me you're Beyond All Star. So but yeah, you got to get down there, man. Really, really good pie.
All right.
Um, so another thing that I kind of wanted to, especially you being a Medford, athlete, Medford person, Medford school system, I'm a teacher. Is there a teacher you've had at any level? You can name a few if you want, but is there a teacher that just stands out that like it was your favorite year of school or favorite class or just really enjoyed being in their room?
I mean, it's kind of way back, but first grade was like I remember it pretty clearly. I remember crying on the last day of school, so I was sad. I was sad to leave. Miss
Who was your
Fargo was my
teacher?
Miss Fargo.
Miss Fargo. So Brooks?
Brooks, yes.
Okay, okay, yeah, okay. Oh wow, I'll have to share that with her son, this clip, because
Yeah.
that's real cool. I think it's always nice. Like I had on the captains of the hockey team, and I asked them the same question, and they went different ways with it. One went back to elementary school, fifth grade, and the other one I think went to high school, like a chemistry teacher, a science teacher, I think it
Yeah.
was. But yeah, so it was just interesting to hear like where your mind goes, and I always feel like people go back to like an elementary school teacher because you're in their room all the time, every day.
Mhm.
Like they are your like other parent for all intents and purposes during the year. So, it's funny to see where people go with that. And glad to see first grade and you remember vividly. Not many
Yeah.
people remember that. So, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So what and you might be very young in this process, but is there a sport right now that you feel like you're best at? Like if you had to pick your best sport or sport that you feel like maybe you could push the furthest. Do you know
Um,
that right now? Or are you just not sure?
I don't know about push the furthest, but best at I'd probably say my skill set's probably fit for basketball. I think I think I'm pretty good at basketball right now, but football is probably close second. Baseball's a hard game. It really baseball's a really hard game, but I mean to go forward into the next level with one, I'm not I haven't picked yet, but I do think basketball right now probably is my best sport. But I'm still learning football. It's only my second year, so I do think it's basketball at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I'm glad that you really don't have one because I think you are still developing a lot. You might have like a sport that you've played the most your entire life, or a sport that you just like football. It's funny because I was the same way. Like I didn't play till I was a freshman in high school, and it ended up being my favorite sport, and a
Right.
sport that I want to pursue. So it's interesting when you play the sport of football sometimes how you fall in love with it in a different way, like you're passionate about it. And not that you're not about like other sports, but like you said, it's the longest season, one, two, it's a bond. Like you're out there in the freezing cold temperatures, especially later in the season or a crappy rainy day. Like you're sitting in class at 11 o'clock and you see it just pouring out, and you know that like in 3 hours you're out there in that, and then you're like, I didn't bring this, so I
Yeah,
only have a t-shirt. Like, yeah, like I get it. Like, I totally get it. So that to
absolutely.
be that kind of crazy, and there's a bunch of others to kind of be that type of crazy, then it's like there's just a different bond there,
Right.
and so, I totally get it. And you might have said it when we talked about captains here, but leadership. What would be your advice to young athletes out there who are maybe just eighth graders coming into high school right now, who have been playing sports for, a certain sport or a couple different sports for a really long time, as far as coming in and maybe having that confidence in themselves that they could walk in, try out, help, maybe even contribute at that varsity level?
I mean, you still have to produce. You still have to prove that. So I wouldn't come into high school with the big head thinking you're going to start off the bat. I would just straight away hard work. Hard work. You're going to get noticed if you're producing all that. So just hard work is just so simple and so easy to do. It's just very easy.
Yeah. Very respectful, and obviously I agree. I think, I put stuff like on my Instagram story all the time about hard work and
Yeah.
motivation, because I think sometimes you read something and you might just hit someone a way that, they're like, okay, and they want to put that work in and they want to get better. Um, so outside of the athlete of who you are a little bit, I think it's important to get to know Justin, right? So what are some things that you're interested in outside of sports? Like, could be a club in school, or, something, an extracurricular activity that you're involved in, or just something that you love to do off to the side that's just like passionate for you.
Uh, in the summer, I run I help run the basketball camp, the summer basketball camp. So, when it's like that wacky Wednesday, you put in a crazy pair of socks or like you
Right,
put in a
right.
mask and run around with all the kids. It's fun. You get them all happy, see them excited, see them actually enjoy sports a little bit, enjoy basketball. It puts a smile on my face. And, just being with your friends, hanging out, walking the streets, going to houses, having
Yeah.
fun, playing video games. I mean, just normal stuff from teenage kids.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's real cool. I love asking that question because it's always something different. And to see working with kids, I mean, is that something like, do you see yourself eventually like wanting to be a coach yourself, or even like get into like some sort of education, or no?
Um, I don't think so. I think it's just while I'm there, I mean, make the most out of it. And like, if I can make some kid want to shoot a ball more, if I can pick that kid off the floor from crying, if I can, make his day, I'd rather do that than see him off to the side. And
Yeah. Do you remember that stuff as a kid? Like, were you involved in camps like that, that like these varsity athletes were kind of doing the same thing?
I was in the same camp I run. Yeah, I used to go to this John Scary's camp too. I was more engaged than some of the kids I helped, but I was always doing the drills. And I was looking. I used to think they were like NBA players. These varsity kids.
Right, right,
I,
right.
I used to think I was so happy to go every day and see the coaches, high five all the coaches and the varsity kids. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. Like a lot of games that we cover, like in any sport, when they have like the youth nights, they're the best night. Like, I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
tonight's youth night, because then my mentality changes when I'm covering the game, because then it's more about covering like atmosphere too, and those
right.
kids going crazy and wearing the uniforms and cheering on the side. Like, that stuff's cool. So yeah, it does stick with you. There's a memory to it, for sure. What about school? Like, as far as school goes, do you have like a favorite subject, or like something that you just excel in maybe more than anything else, or
I'd like to say I'm a pretty good writer. I think English is my best. I'm in honors English, so I think that's my best subject. Math is still pretty hard to me. Chemistry kind of looks like
yeah, like a different language, right?
yeah, but um, I think English is my best one. I do pretty well in that class. I write pretty good papers. It's not a lot of my friends are in that class, so it's kind of just like I'm kind of focused more. I'm not like goofing off and stuff. So like I'm kind of straight to business in that class.
That's great. You like writing a lot, or is that just the class you write? I mean,
I
do you
mean,
write outside of that a lot, or?
I don't write outside a lot, but no, when something's due Friday and I get assigned on a Monday, I'm trying to really work hard. I'm not trying to wait till Thursday night. I'm trying to do like a good job because I do like writing to an extent,
Yeah.
and so I
I
do
think
try to
it's
do
a
my
way to express yourself in a way, right?
right,
Like, it's kind of like music and on a piece of paper, more
right.
realistically. Um, And then I gotta give a shout out, Mr. Richard, who's the PE teacher at your school. He talks very, very highly of you, and always says how you're a good kid and a good athlete. And as I'm hearing you talk and listening to you talk, it's just like, yeah, man, like you fit the bill. Like I'm telling you, as like a high school coach, like a college coach comes and talks to you at this age with the maturity that you've talked to me. Yeah, like they're going back being like, this kid's interesting. So
Thank
keep doing what you're doing. Like, and I
you.
honestly mean that. And obviously we're going to be covering you in baseball season and just in general as you kind of progress through your next few years of high school and maybe figure out that sport that you're pursuing or a school that you might be or schools that you might be looking at, or obviously anything that you do outside of sports that you want to show off. Like you, obviously that's something we will help you do too. But I appreciate you coming on here today. I think you got something really good going. I can't wait to see how baseball season goes for you. And yeah, sky's the limit for you. Just keep doing and saying everything that you are doing and saying, because it's the right stuff for real.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So from Beyond Podcast, I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, Justin Marino. Till next time.